I know so many talented musicians singing in a church choir that nobody's ever heard of, but they can sing better than Beyonce. So talent doesn't get you there alone. Confidence doesn't get you there alone. It's very rare to get to the pinnacle of that type of career. But when we look at someone, we think that that's the norm. And I think that that can be problematic if we try to live our lives and adjust our expectations in that way. You can set us up for a lot of disappointment or worse. Welcome to King Moves. In chess, the king moves one step at a time, but that single move can change everything. Each week, we explore mindset shifts and simple actions that could lead to the next breakthrough in your business and life. I'm your co-host, Ethan King, from Atlanta, Georgia, USA. Entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author of Wealth Beyond Money.
And I'm your co-host, Justin King, no relation to Ethan, from Cape Town, South Africa. Entrepreneur, speaker, and business growth strategist. Our journey crosses continents and cultures as we think out loud, challenge assumptions, and uncover the small moves that create big momentum. Welcome to King Moves. Let's start the conversation.
In this conversation, I'm going to fire a few shots. These people are not going to have any idea who on earth I am, but I know who they are. So, and those shots are going to be fired towards David Goggins and James Lawrence, Iron Cowboy. And the reason I say I'm firing shots towards them, and obviously I'll say that tongue in cheek, but huge respect for what it is that they have achieved and are able to achieve. Massive, superhuman, in fact. But the one problem I have with a lot of the narrative and a lot of the message that they share is that it is push yourself and just finish the thing, whatever the cost may be. And maybe I misunderstand how they position at times, but more often than not, I'll hear David Goggins speak about, man, his injuries that he had, and he had broken legs and he just strapped splints on and he just got the thing done, or he goes for his run and he's got no cartilage left in his knee and it's just bone on bone. And you're doing more damage there, for sure. James Lawrence or Iron Cowboy, superhuman to be able to do 50 triathlons in 50 days in 50 states. To then take it to the next level, to do 100 full triathlons in 100 days, next level. But I know one of the things that he really speaks about is how he had internal bleeding and that still didn't stop him and he just carried on. Part of me thinks like, is that smart? I'm not too sure. Was that damage or was it discomfort? So where I'm going with this, and the reason I want to go to war with the idea of just do hard things at any cost, is because I think there's a better way to do it, and that is smart toughness. And smart toughness means that you've got to have a clear why behind the what, and you've also sometimes got to know when you need to call it. That is being smart. And as I was saying, the very simple framework that I use, or the question that often comes up is, how do you identify the point where things have gone from discomfort, because that's what we want to seek, for sure, to push ourselves, to grow, we want to seek discomfort, but at what point has it gone from discomfort to damage? And that damage might be damage to yourself, it might be damage to the people around you, it might be damage to a relationship, damage in so many ways. And if we can start identifying that, and in that moment be able to kind of take a step back, realign, reassess, and then make a smart decision around, well, what does toughness look like from here? Sometimes that is saying no more. That to me is the smart toughness concept.
Key thing you said there, discomfort versus damage. Because the message that those guys preach, and by the way, huge fan also, lots of respect for them. I think mental toughness is a thing that we need. However, you make a great point. When you're in a damaging situation, you run the risk of continuing to push, and it amplifies the damage. And then at some point that becomes irreversible. It can become irreversible. And we need to be careful of that with our relationships, with our health, for sure. But also, as you were talking, it made me think about one of my favorite books was Born to Run. Have you read that book? It was about those Mexican tribes, and they just run marathons every day and beer and orgies. And it's crazy, right? I was reading that book. When I first got into running, I was reading that and it just pumped me up because they were doing all this barefoot, right? I was like, man, if these guys can do it, run marathons barefoot every single day, then I can run this little 10K or whatever, right? So it really helped frame my mindset. But then, a few years later, after I read that book, the main subject of that book died. I don't know, what was his name? Micah True.
Yeah.
He actually died while running. And he had some sort of a heart issue. Yeah. And I remember hearing that, and, rest in peace. I feel bad for him and his family, but it kind of away some of the value that book taught me, because I'm like, I was idolizing him and the other subjects in that book for their endurance running and their perseverance, but then he died doing the actual thing. So it kind of took away a bunch of points for me. So when you talk about the damaging effect, and we need to be mindful of that, and you may need to pivot in that and not just push through, that I think is a very strong message.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. I'm glad that it resonated when I mentioned it to you, because it's something I've been sitting on for a long time, something I feel strongly about. And I've wrestled for a long time with the idea of, why do I always seem to choose the hard thing? Why does that seem to be my personality? But inherently, what I've also managed to do is maybe choose the hard thing in the moment, make that hard choice to do the hard thing, but also realize in the moment of doing it that enough's enough. It's time to walk away from this, or it's time to make a small pivot in this thing. It doesn't always have to be walking away completely, but how do we change it? How do we reframe it? Thinking to the runs, it was running every single marathon to walking some of them to still get to the end of it, a small reframe. So that to me is the smart toughness. What I could have done is just been like, no, I'm going to Goggins my way through this and just carry on. Likely, I would have had serious issues with my knees post that. So I was clear. I still want to. I love activity. I love exercising. I still want to do it for 40 years' time. Is it more important to me to finish all of these runs, these marathons by running, or is it more important to me in 40 years' time that I'm still able to have an active lifestyle? I'm still able to run until I'm 80 years old. Man, that's way more important to me. Okay, I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to reassess, and I'm going to change what I'm trying to achieve in this moment. So that's really that's the smart toughness element. And it's so important. And for me, it just resonates so much leaning into a physically difficult thing, because smart toughness then translates. Once you've done it, a physically challenging activity, it translates so well into making that big decision in your relationship, making your big decision in your business life. Do we bring on investors? Don't we? Those are massive decisions. And once you've built this experience and the way that you've been able to work through tough situations, not just blindly. So we're not speaking about blind grit and white knuckling, because that's what a lot of us do. It's blind grit and white knuckling. We're speaking about, how do I pause and make a real decision? How do I make a decision when the going is really tough? Because there's decisions to be made, and the only decision is not carry on at any expense. Right. So yeah, man, I'm excited about kind of where this is going and how it's coming together in my mind.
Key things. Pivoting does not equal weakness. Yeah. We have to remember that. In fact, pivoting could lead to an even better opportunity. So there could be strength in pivoting. And I think that's the danger that we run into with messaging like that. It's like, don't pivot, just push through. Could be bad advice, because there could be, have you heard the term survivorship bias? Yep. Where, it's a term where we hear these about these edge cases, and we think that that's the norm, where this person pushed through broken toes and frostbite and made it, and they made it to the end of the 100-miler. But and you hear about that person, you're like, oh man, that's awesome. If they can do it, I can do it. But you didn't hear about maybe the 99 other people who ended up in a wheelchair or in the hospital, or maybe didn't make it, So, and you can look at this with any situation, climbing mountains, things like that. Even I was watching this video last night by Mark Mason, where he was talking about Kanye West. And Kanye West started out with being this confident, young hip hop producer, beats producer, and he rose to the top of musical status. But then he went off the rails, and anti-Semitism and all this other crazy stuff has happened now. In a span of 20 years, he went from confident to it went too far. And when we look at, he went back to Kanye's early life when everybody liked Kanye, just about. And so old Kanye. And we look at, oh man, if he's confident and he has talent, then that means if I'm confident and I have talent, then I'll win. I'll become a musical icon too. But that's not always the case. How many cover bands do we know out there? I know so many talented musicians singing in a church choir that nobody's ever heard of, but they can sing better than Beyonce. So talent doesn't get you there alone. confidence doesn't get you there alone. It's very rare to get to the pinnacle of that type of career. But when we look at someone, we think that that's the norm. And I think that can be problematic if we try to live our lives and adjust our expectations in that way. You can set us up for a lot of disappointment or worse.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are spot on as far as being aligned here, because the way I see it, like a very, very dangerous narrative, and I'm going to call it a pipe dream that we get sold, is that we're capable of anything. And maybe you're gonna argue with me on this one. Let's see. But I don't think we're capable of anything. I am not capable of completing 100 triathlons in 100 days. Like, no matter how much I train, I will never be able to do that. So being told that you can do anything is dangerous. What you are capable of is more. Like, with meaningful effort pointed in the right direction, you are absolutely capable of more than you probably think you are, and capable of more than where you are today. But just being able to be pointed off and aimed at absolutely anything, you can be anything that you want, you can complete anything that you put your mind to, I think it's dangerous. I really do. I think we've got to be smart about what that anything is. If we can make incremental improvements with meaningful effort, golden. But you cannot just go around telling people that you're capable of doing anything and everything. It's similar.
I will challenge you on that one. I'm going to
challenge. I did.
So I think, and this might be good for another separate conversation, but I do think you're capable. I think you're capable of doing 100 triathlons in 100 days. Here's the key word: if you really, really wanted to. You have to have that desire. I believe if someone has a burning desire, they are unstoppable in achieving that thing, because desire will keep you pushing through. It'll keep you learning the next thing. It'll keep you going to the next level, but it has to be a genuine, like, burning desire. Like, nothing else in life matters. I am going to do these 100 triathlons in 100 days. And think about it. You could trick your brain. What if everyone you loved in this world were going to die if you didn't complete those 100 triathlons in 100 days? You'd figure out a way to do it, because now you have the desire.
I hear you, but I think, and maybe it's nuanced, but if you're 5 foot, it's highly unlikely that you're going to become an NBA star, as an example. And I know there's Russell Wilson, who was like 5 foot odd. I mean, and he played quarterback and was one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. So I realized that. So, like, that's a great example of somebody who physically is probably not made for it, but to your point, put his mind to it and made it happen, and made it happen to an incredible level. But there are certain times where you can just not do that thing. It's just not, no matter how much you want it. If you've got, like, physically you built for it, and you've got that aspect of it, and you can put your mind to it, yes. Yeah. But I think we all in buckets of...
I can't fly. I can't just jump in the air and flap my arms and fly. That is physically impossible. Yeah. It's funny, when I was a kid, I used to idolize, Superman was my favorite superhero. And I believed that I could fly if I really put my mind to it. And I remember there are photos of me when I was like 7, 8 years old, jumping off of my grandmother's stairs. And I would do it over and over again, because I truly believe that if I kept practicing at it, I would eventually just levitate in the air and take off and fly like Superman. But obviously that is not possible. That is not true. I want to circle back to one thing that you said there. You were talking about the professional NBA players or NFL players. And so what I don't think is possible is becoming famous for the thing, or maybe hitting that pro level in that thing. I don't think that is possible for everyone. And the reason why is because that part of it, that fame or getting hired by a certain team, that part of it involves other people, and you can't control other people.
Fair.
Same thing with the Kanye West example. There were other people involved, the Jay-Z's of the world, that made him who he is. Despite his talent and confidence, you got to have that part of it. That's not within your control. So even if you ran, or even if you completed the 100 triathlons in 100 days, that doesn't mean you're going to be famous for it. So that's the extra element that I think is out of your control and that you can't guarantee.
Yeah.
But I do think that as long as it's physically possible, if you have the burning desire, you can accomplish anything you want to accomplish.
Yeah. And maybe, and I need to wrestle with it a little bit, but possibly what my concern is, if you think you are capable of absolutely anything, you end up doing nothing. Because, I mean, I could do, like, it's a cop-out. I could do anything that I put my mind to. Like, I could do that. You know what? I've been told, and I know I could do that thing. I could complete 100 triathlons, or I could do that thing. So What I'd prefer to see is somebody to put their mind to, instead of saying, I'm going to run 100 marathons or whatever, put their mind to, I'm going to do 10Ks. I've never run 10Ks. I've done a 5K before, but you know what? I'm going to work for it. And in a month's time, I'm going to complete 10Ks. And that's a hard thing for them to do in that moment because they haven't done it before. And then that's where you've got intention behind wanting to improve, wanting to get better by doing something tough. And the beautiful thing is when you start stepping into those things, or I want to learn a new language. Yeah, in a few months' time, we're going on a holiday with a family to wherever, to Spain. But you know what? I'm not going to use my phone. I'm going to, in the next 3 months, I'm going to lean into learning some basic Spanish. That's what I want to do. That's my hard thing. And the beauty there is your physiology actually changes. There's the anterior mid-singular cortex, the AMCC in your brain. And that's the area that's responsible for willpower, for perseverance, for resilience. That all comes from this AMCC. And when we lean into these challenging things that there's discomfort in them, learning a new language, mastering a musical instrument, completing 10Ks, climbing a mountain, your AMCC gets bigger, physically bigger. That area of your brain that controls resilience, willpower, perseverance gets bigger. That's what I love to see. That's why we need to lean into these things. But don't go to the extreme of white knuckling, blind grit. How can we show smart toughness as we do?
Great way to end it. I think that's the king move, being able to decipher between the two, knowing when to pivot versus when to push through.
Love it. Ethan, that was a good chat. Thank you.
That's a wrap for today's episode of King Moves. Remember, in chess, like in business, one right move can change everything. Take today's action step, make your move, and build momentum.
If you found value in today's episode, share it with someone who's ready for their next breakthrough, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our weekly conversations. Until next time.